Hey there, it's Belinda Weaver here, and this is my regular Friday Periscope. It's Friday, 1 p.m. Australian Eastern Standard Time, and today I'm going to be talking about who buys copywriting services anyway. So let me know if you're tuning in. I'm just going to flip the camera around, so I'm probably going to go out of sound for a second. Hang on. Hey, there we go. Hi, Robbie. Thanks for tuning in. And got some more people coming online. Thanks very much for joining in. So just a quick introduction, my name is Belinda Weaver and I have these Periscopes every Friday at 1 p.m. So today, as I said, I'm going to be talking about who buys copywriting services anyway. And that might seem like a bit of a weird question. You might already be thinking, the businesses do, but it's actually a more interesting question than you might think. And I got this question from one of my copywriting students on my copywriting masterclass. So I'm just going to, my screen just went a bit funny. Yes, so I have a copywriting, thank you DB16 for sharing that on Twitter for me. So I have a copywriting masterclass. It's a 12-week course, 16 lessons about copywriting. It's basically a foundation copywriting course if you want to become a copywriter or you just want to learn how to write compelling, clickable, readable copy. So that's the course. I'm going to talk about it more a little bit later, but I have these monthly coaching sessions where my students can jump on a call with me and ask me anything they want. And one of my students has just come out of a corporate environment. So she's been sheltered in a fantastic company. It was actually Virgin. And there was a restructure. She got the opportunity for, thanks for some hearts there, she got the opportunity to take redundancy and thought, you know what? This is an opportunity I'm going to use to explore something else. And she's on my course and she's learning about copywriting because she is going to set herself up as a copywriter. Now, her question was, I'm not really sure, I've been in the corporate space for so long, I'm not really sure who buys copywriting services. And so that's what I want to talk about today. So the first category of people or groups of people who buy copywriting services are small businesses. So that could be a solo business owner or maybe a business with just a few people. I'd love to know if you're a small business owner or you fall into any of the other categories that I'm going to talk about. Let me know. Let me know who's on the call. Or maybe where you were from as well. I'm in California right now, but I know I'm going to be talking to a lot of people who are in Australia. And obviously I'm Australian. So yeah, that first category, small business owners, maybe one person, maybe a couple of people, maybe it's one person who outsources to freelancers, but there is just one person in charge. And that person's doing the marketing, the copywriting, the account keeping, dealing with the customers, the sales, and then actually doing whatever the business specialty actually is. And that's how we all start off as solo small business owners. So they're, I think, one of the big groups of people who outsource to specialists because if you hear some snuffling down here, it's my dog Fenris. He's a pug, so he snorts and snuffles and snores. Robbie says Melbourne is gorgeous today. That's really good to hear. But anyway, so with, you're a small business owner, you're trying to do everything and you can't do everything. So you have to do what you are good at. And that means outsourcing to specialists. Fenris says hi to Robbie. That's my dog's name. And so copywriting is a specialist skill that copywriters obviously know about, but most business people don't. They specialize in what they do. So they outsource copywriting projects. It might be a brochure. It might be, I need a new website and I just don't know how to put what I'm good at, what I'm awesome at, and target people really well. I don't know how to do that on a website so people don't bug off after the first page. So they're a big group of people who are outsourced to copywriters. So, you find them in small business forums. Finally Writing, thanks for joining in. And so you find small business owners usually, well, of course, on social media, but, often in small business forums where you can start talking to them and finding out what their challenges are and becoming the copywriter that they know. And this is one thing I talked about in the last Periscope I did, which was, what you want to do as part of your marketing, especially when you get started, is to be very, very generous with your knowledge and experience. So you want to start talking to people on things like small business forums. Now, I've got Robbie at Miracle Work VA helping me out in this Periscope. So you'll see her pop up with some little messages there like, share the love on Twitter. Thanks, Robbie. So that's small business owners, right? And we've got medium businesses. Now, these are usually organizations with 5, 10, 20 people, a lot bigger. And they might even have their own marketing department or marketing person in-house. But, that marketing person doesn't have time. Thanks for sharing that on Twitter, finally writing. So that person does not have time. Throwing something at my dog. That person in the marketing department or the marketing team don't have time to write all the copy for the brand new website or create a whole series of new brochures for the sales team. So that's another group of people who would outsource to a copywriting specialist. Generally when it comes to outsourcing, you either spend the money or you spend the time. And if you haven't got the time or you haven't got the expertise to learn it, you haven't got the time to learn it and become an expert, I should say, then you need to spend the money. And that's where we as copywriters come in. Hey, thanks for all those hearts there as well. That tells me that I'm on the right track. Right, so we've got small business owners, we've got medium businesses. Now, medium businesses, you'll often find some of their staff hanging out on business forums as well. But I think medium-sized businesses tend to be part of things like chambers of commerce and more in-person group networking. So that's another great place to kind of target those groups. Now, then we have large companies, huge, big corporate behemoths of companies. And, they often have entire marketing departments, or they outsource a lot of their marketing work to agencies, marketing agencies, design agencies, creative agencies, groups like that. So they might have a marketing team that keeps their regular marketing ticking along, but they'll outsource big creative projects to an agency. And an agency will either have maybe some copywriters in-house, or they will outsource to freelance copywriters. I've actually done a few big projects for agencies, and I know some copywriters who exclusively work with agencies, so they don't actually really work with small business owners at all. So the fourth group of people that I wanted to talk about is people whose clients need copywriters. And again, this is something that I kind of referenced very briefly in last week's Periscope, which you can find on YouTube, actually, YouTube.com/Copyright Matters TV. I record all these and I put them on YouTube. But I was talking about when you're trying to build relationships with people who can send you work, graphic designers, web developers, they're a great group of people to connect with because their clients often need copywriting. Thanks again for the hearts. So, someone comes to a graphic designer and says, I need a new brochure. And then the graphic designer says, great, I can design it. Where's the copy? And the client goes, what? And so these people, thanks the full noise, thanks for joining in. These people, web designers, graphic designers, people like that, are much like creative agencies and design agencies. They need to refer their clients onto people they can trust, copywriters that can get the job done. So that's the fourth group of people who hire copywriters. And I'll quickly recap because some people have just joined in. So we've got small business owners who do not have the time to be faffing around with their copywriting. Because, of course, if you don't know how to do it and you're not practiced at it, it takes 10 times longer than, if you just hire a copywriter to do it. Then we have medium-sized businesses, bigger businesses who might even have an internal marketing department, but that marketing department doesn't have the skills or even maybe the time to tackle a specific copywriting project. So they will get a copywriter involved. Lots of hearts coming up. Jeez, I love that. The third group was large organizations like big corporates, and they often work closely with agencies, creative agencies, and they're the people who will hire freelance copywriters or have some copywriters in-house. And then, as I just mentioned, people whose clients need copywriters, graphic designers, web designers, people like that. So all these groups are people you can connect with, but there are pros and cons to each. For example, Small business owners, I personally love working with small business owners. They were the main group of people I targeted before, because you're often dealing with just one person. That one person is extremely passionate about their business. They know it inside and out. So they can tell you all about it. It's coming straight from the horse's mouth. They can also make decisions about the project. They don't need to go through a layered tier of approvals. So decisions can be quite quick. And in my experience, you also tend to get paid a bit quicker. So they're the pros of a small business owner. The cons can sometimes be that they don't always know the answers to the big questions that you're asking as a copywriter, like, what makes you unique? Why would people choose you? What's your brand personality? And then as a copywriter, it's up to us to coach those answers out of them. So the pros and cons of working with medium-sized businesses is that there are more people involved, and that can make the process a little bit cumbersome sometimes. Everyone has their 2 cents. Everyone wants to review the copy. Everyone wants to chime in with their opinion, and it can be a bit more complicated. I overcame that by saying you need to have one person as the contact for me on the project, and that contact person would have to sort out all the different opinions and stuff like that. They often also have longer payment cycles because you have an accounts department. And once you have an accounts department involved, Robbie just said the great approach. Thanks very much. Once you have an accounts department involved, often the payment terms go straight to 30 or 60 days, and you have to make sure that the invoice actually gets to the accounts department so it can get paid. But at the same time, they might have more practice knowledge of what they do, who they do it for, and why they're so damn special. Now, big organizations, they look great in your portfolio. You know, I loved working with putting Kimberly Clark and I Can Quit New South Wales. You know, when you work with agencies who work with big corporations, you get some great big names in your portfolio, which is good for your ego, good to attract clients. But a lot more people involved in a project. You know, copy does the rounds, and you're often trying to assimilate lots of different points of view. I think you either get, because often if you're working with an agency, you might not even get to speak directly to the client, so you can get a few mixed messages. On the flip side, if you're working with an agency, you might get super fast approval, because it's a lot less complicated. So that can really depend on the agency, and it can depend on the client. So that's really about making sure you can get the information that you need. The bigger the company, the harder it can be to get the information you need. So that's just one of the challenges as a copywriter you have to factor into your process. And then you'll definitely have longer payment times. Pros and cons. Yeah, it is good because you think, you know, Robbie's just said it's so good to hear both the pluses and the minuses. And you think, it's Telstra, or it's Officeworks, or it's Kimberly Clark. This is going to be amazing. And sometimes they are. And sometimes it's sweet, sweet torture. And that's what I said. I always love working with small business owners because they know their stuff. They're often really straightforward to work with. They make decisions quickly, and they often pay a lot faster as well. So, the fourth group was people's clients, graphic designers, web designers, and they, again, can be a little bit like agencies. The best part is if you get to speak to the client directly, because then you get it all straight from the horse's mouth. But then sometimes you have to say you're working with such and such web designer or such and such graphic designer, and then there's questions about who you represent as a brand. But, they're really small things. But, when you're starting out and you've got this great big world of who the hell do I approach to get work, there are actually little niches. So you've got small business owners, you've got medium-sized businesses who are larger, you've got large corporations who work with agencies, and you've got people whose clients need copywriting services. 4 different groups. They have pros and cons, and you can find them in different places. So that's something to think about. Where are they hanging out? How can you talk to them? And then, as I mentioned in my last Periscope, what you generally want to do in your marketing, especially on social media, is be extremely generous with your knowledge. Be useful, be generous, be friendly, be the copywriter that people get to know. And when you're the copywriter, they don't shop around. That's, whatever customer group you're targeting, they generally won't shop around. So that's your goal. That is your goal. So what I wanted to do is, quickly, are there any questions? Do you have any questions about these different types of audiences? Maybe you have a favorite. Maybe you work exclusively with one or the other. Or maybe you have some diversity. I preferred working with small business owners. I only reached that conclusion after kind of working with all different types of customers. And I went, yeah, you know what? And those big brands ain't quite as fun as they are, as sexy as they seem. So, that was always mine. And sometimes you only know those pros and cons from experience. So, if you don't have any questions, I'd love it, if you don't mind, to tell you a little bit more of my copywriting masterclass. So I mentioned it's a copywriting course for people who want to become copywriters, or maybe just starting out as copywriting and they're not quite confident in their skills. So it's 12 weeks, 16 lessons of going back to basics. This is what, you need to know if you want to do copywriting. It's basically everything I know, all the formulas I use to write copy, from the call to action and the headline to using things like rhyme and repetition and how to mix up your sentence lengths and stuff like that. And as Robbie just said here, the masterclass opens again in 2016. The enrollments have just closed recently. The class sold out, which was fantastic. And so I've got all the students posting their homework and posting questions. But what you can do is you can find it on my website, which is copywritematters.com. You follow the big orange man on the homepage and you'll find your way to the courses, or you can just go straight to copywritematters.com/learn-copywriting. Now you might be asking, why is she telling us this when the course isn't open and it's not going to open till next year? Basically, I have a pre-launch list. So if you're even a teensy-weensy bit interested, get your name on that list. And if you go to the learn-copywriting page, just go, how does your pricing differ between these groups? Cool, DB16, I will come to that. If you're a teensy-weensy bit interested in the masterclass, get your name on that sign-up list and you'll get updates. You don't get anything else, but basically I only launch it to that list. And one of the perks of the list is not just all the content that's coming out of my head. It's the coaching calls and the coaching on the forum. So you do exercises, you post your work, and I review all your copywriting and give you feedback about things you might consider, where you need a big high five, where you're nailing it. And, that's how you improve your copywriting, because otherwise you're just writing in a void and it's almost impossible to know if you're getting it or not. So, as I said at the beginning, this question actually came from a new student, and it's something we're going to talk about in tomorrow's coaching call. So we have these monthly coaching calls. I do one for Australia and I do one for the US and UK because I've got a really international group. And we get lots of great questions about running a copywriting business and the content and all that kind of stuff. So DB16, which I have a funny feeling is Denise. Is that you, Denise? Asked me, how do I differ my pricing between all the different groups? You know what, to be honest, I didn't differ my pricing at all. I'm just sorry. The screen isn't freezing. I'm just making sure. I didn't I have the same hourly rate now. I don't tell people my hourly rate. I have a project fixed cost. So yes, I thought it was you, Denise. So one of the first Periscopes I did was how to put a copywriting quote together, and I said basically I take my hourly rate and the number of the time I think a project will take, number of hours, and then I factor in all the other things that I need to cover, like professional, proofreading and taking the brief and admin and revisions and stuff like that. So that's another great Periscope to catch, because I talked through a little formula I use for quoting. But so yeah, my hourly rate didn't change. I didn't care if you were a small business owner or you were ANZ Bank or something. I didn't write for ANZ Bank. I'm just using them as a really big money-laden example. So it would be the same costs regardless. Now, what would change between those two groups is how much time I allocated for revisions. Now, one of the things I mentioned, the pros and cons, the bigger the business, the longer revisions can tend to take because you're dealing with more people. Everyone wants to put their 2 cents in, and then you get Pete from the other office who didn't even know this was going on, and you're finalising the copy, get it proofread, but he wants to say something, all that. So it can go on longer. So what I would do is, rather than necessarily changing the pricing as such, the final project for bigger companies, the final project cost would often be bigger because of things like more admin and more revision time. Yeah, revisions can really be a piece of string, which is something Robbie just said. And that's why, as a freelancer, and I'll speak, as a copywriter, you need to put some boundaries around stuff like that. I always said you get 2 rounds of revisions. And another condition I always added was if the revisions are extremely extensive, like beyond the brief and the scope's changing, then that's a requote. That's going to cost extra. So it's really important to put boundaries around what you consider a regular piece of work. Otherwise, you're working for free. No one likes doing that. So that's how the pricing would change between the groups. My hourly rate wouldn't change, but I would allocate more time for larger organizations. Small business owners I always found really quick and a pleasure to work with. So that's what I wanted to talk about. If you have any more questions, just pop them up. Otherwise, as I said, I record these Periscopes. They'll be on Periscope for the next day or so, I think. Robbie's just said it tends to take a while in your business to get that process down. Oh my God, yes. It took years for me to do it. And that's what you change your terms and conditions, because every time you have a new experience, you chalk it up and you say, okay, well, kind of got screwed on that. So I'm going to use it as a learning curve and adapt my terms and conditions, adapt my processes, get more information up front, ask more questions, make sure I only have one contact person, all that kind of stuff. And you just have to chalk it up to experience. So, thanks everyone for tuning in. You can have one last chance to share this sucker on Twitter. As I said, you just hit the little dude. It could be a lady. And a window pops up. You can say share on Twitter. You can watch the replay. Thank you everyone for the hearts. I really appreciate the feedback. And I appreciate your time joining me on this Periscope. If you want to watch the replay and it's gone from Periscope, find me on the YouTube at Copyright Matters TV. So enjoy your day, enjoy your evening, enjoy your weekend. Thank you everyone for your time. Cool. See you later.